Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preachy and we're kicking off Mage Week. You guys have been requesting all sorts of Mage stuff on preachgaming.com, so we're going to kick it off with the big Frost Mage. You're thinking that's a bit contradictory. Frost Mages, PvE, Preacher, what the hell, what are you doing? I love the Frost Mage. I absolutely think it's my favourite of the Frost specs. I absolutely loved it, and it was always kind of suck in PvE, and I'm hoping due to the talent revamp where we're picking utility talents, which can be either PvP focused or a bit PvE focused, is that we can actually do some great stuff with the Frost Mage. So I'm really looking forward to this video. I hope it's going to be pretty cool. Overall, the general feeling is mages are in a weird place. Blizzard seems to be taking mages in sort of a weird direction. They want to change things a lot. Frost has had a huge revamp. Arcane has had a huge revamp. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how Arcane plays out now. But we've got all sorts of various bits and bobs that play around with us. And as you can see, my toolbars are full of spells, which is kind of weird for the Frost Mage. We generally only had a few things to play with. So let's get balls deep and see exactly how this bad boy is playing out. So obviously our specialization is Frost. We pick up Frostbolt. Now, one of the big changes in Cataclysm is when you choose a specialization is you actually get that main nuke, and that is all you get. So you don't have the options of Fireball, you don't have the options of Arcane Blast. As Frost, your main nuke will change to either Frostbolt, with Fire it'll be Fireball, and with Arcane it'll be Arcane Blast. So you don't have the option of those other spells. I actually kind of thought that was going to be a running theme, but as you can see on my bars, I still have Fire Blast, I still have Flame Strike, I have Arcane Explosion, so I was kind of confused when I started setting up the character as to what the hell we were going to do with this stuff. But let's look at the Frost specialization. We still get our Summer Elemental, there he is. I wish this guy would have a name. Have a name, bro. Fingers of Frost, this has been changed dramatically from what we know about it on live. Your successful Frostbolts, Frostfire Bolts, and Frozen Orb hits have a 12% chance, your Blizzard Ticks have a 4% chance, and your successful Scorches have a 9% chance to grant you Fingers of Frost. Fingers of Frost effect causes your next Ice Lance or Deep Freeze to act as if your target were frozen and increase Ice Lance damage by 25%. I'm going to talk a little bit about Brain Freeze soon and how that's been switched up. And of course we pick up Ice Lance as well. Deals some nice frost damage. Don't worry about the little extra description, I'll get to that shortly. So let's look at our talents. In general, this was pretty easy for Blizzard because each talent generally rings of an arcane feel, rings of a fire feel, or thinks of a frost feel, okay? They all have these kind of little bits and little ways of synergizing together to give us an idea. Now, I've read the theory craft before I jump into these talents and talk about them, and some spells work better for pure DPS. However, because we have the option of all three sort of various ways of looking at these things, I'm going to kind of do a frost feel, then I'm going to do a kind of a fire feel, and then I'm going to do a sort of an arcane feel as well. Not like sticking to it 100%, I have changed some stuff up, but in general that's what I'm going to be trying to do. So at level 15 we pick up some sort of DPS or movement cooldown. So we get Presence of Mind, still does what it says on the tin. It makes our next spell instant cast, pretty cool, and Presence of Mind if not on the global cooldown, which is always fun. We can then get Scorch, where we can run around and cast our Scorches. They cost 100 mana. They effectively cost nothing. Remember, in Mists of Pandaria, our mana bar is capped at 100k. When we are capped, I think it goes to 300k. More intellect does not mean more mana anymore. That's not how the game works. And our last one is Ice Flows, a 1 minute cooldown where we can move while casting for a short period of time, channeling the next 2 mage spells that have a base cast time of less than 4 seconds. This spell may be cast while a spell is in progress and is not on the global cooldown as well. I went with Presence of Mind. In general, for the heroics I'm going to be doing, I need an instant cast spell. I'm not going to be moving around a great deal. Arguably for the Wise Man Mari, if we go into that dungeon, then maybe Scorch would be better and maybe Ice Flows would be better. But again, situational, and I like that. If we've got a heavy movement fight where we're moving all the damn time, Scorch is going to be pretty cool. If we've got a fight where we need to move every now and again, Ice Flows will be cool. And if we've got a nice stationary boss where we can nuke our tits off, so this creamy goodness coming out of our character, Presence of Mind will win every day. At level 30, we pick up some sort of defensive ability. So Ice Barrier is still in the game, still does what it says in Cataclysm, okay? We're getting a nice big fat absorb of 41k, lasts 1 minute, and while we've got it, we cannot be interrupted while casting spells. Very cool. Blazing Speed, it's got a huge description, but basically if you get hit, you get a nice short burst of run speed by 150% for a second and a half, so you can get your ass away. And the other one, which is interesting, which is the sort of arcane feeling spell, is Temporal Shield. Envelops you in a temporal shield for 4 seconds. Damage taken while shielded will be healed back over 6 seconds. I love this for PvE. I think this is fantastic, okay? We know some big damage is coming and the raid healers are going to have to heal the whole raid and all that kind of stuff. With Temporal Shield, we can actually pretty much take care of ourselves. Boom! And it looks, yeah, it looks okay. Nothing special. Moving down to level 45, we pick up some sort of CC ability, but there's one spell in particular I thought looked really cool. We get Ring of Frost. You no longer get Ring of Frost as standard. You have to choose to have Ring of Frost, alright guys? So notice that first, that big change. There's also Frostjaw. It silences and freezes the target in place for 8 seconds. Lasts half as long versus player target, so 4 seconds. Very, very difficult stuff. And Ice Ward. Places an Ice Ward on a friendly target. When an enemy strikes the target, all enemies within 10 yards will become frozen in place. So when we're doing our little burst AoE as a Frost Mage, and we're obviously going for our Frost Nova and then going away with our Cone of Cold, we can actually go ahead and Ice Ward a friendly target. Just like that, and if we Ice Ward ourselves and we get hit, but we can also Ice Ward the tank as well. So if our Frost Nova happens to be on cooldown, then we can very, very easily just go ahead and make sure that we're going to get an extra AoE, big burst, crit, Cone of Cold, and all that good justice. Really like it. At level 60, we get some sort of defensive ability again. Notice a little bit of a running theme in the mages, all about defensive stuff. So we get greater invisibility. Makes your invisibility reduce all threat and instant, okay? And removes 2 damaging over time effects. I worry about that, because a lot of big PvE bosses put some sort of really horrible, nasty cooldown on you that sometimes cannot be removed. If you think back to Karazhan, Morose, okay? Morose, welcome to dinner. All that kind of stuff. He put that nasty-ass rend on you. It was so hardcore, that rend, that people were actually farming level 60 content for an item called a Lufa, which could remove bleed effects. I worry about spells that are so vague in what they remove. It removes 2 damage over time effects, so a little bit wary on that one. But still nice and cool, instant invisibility. Cauterize is still in the game. The Mage bread and butter of raiding. Really is. We can soak some serious things with Cauterize. But be aware, Cauterize is now on a 2-minute internal cooldown. Okay, it's now been doubled to 2 minutes. Blizzard obviously trying to get away from people cheesing content with Cauterize, such as Warlord Zonos with his giant tennis ball of death. We had singular mages soaking that bad boy with Cauterize every rotation. They've tried to remove that by adding a 2-minute internal cooldown for it, but it still works exactly the same. And we've got Cold Snap as well, instantly resetting our Ice Block, our Frost Nova and Cone of Cold spells. Instantly restores 30% of your health as well. So PvPers rejoice. Cold Snap is now a heal. Pretty cool. At level 75, we get a different kind of bomb. Okay, this is one that's a little bit tricky for everybody at the moment, and the Mathemagicians are running wild with this stuff. Essentially, when you first get your character and you haven't spec'd, you will have an ability called Mage Bomb, and it's grayed out. Now, essentially what that's saying is, until you spec into one of your level 75 talents, it's not usable because it will become the signature bomb of your class. So, there's Nether Tempest. Places a Nether Tempest on the target, which deals arcane damage. Notice it's the arcane themed one. Each time Nether Tempest deals damage, an additional 50% of that damage is also dealt to a random target within 10 yards. Living Bomb. The target becomes a living bomb, taking the damage over time. When this effect ends, the target dies. It explodes to deal additional fire damage to up to 3 enemies within 10 yards and applies to 3 targets. Note that Nether Tempest does not apply to 3 targets. And also Frost Bomb. Places a Frost Bomb on the target. After 4.21 seconds, the bomb explodes, dealing 20,000 frost damage to the primary target and 10,000 frost damage to all targets within 10 yards. All affected targets are slowed by 70% for 2 seconds. Frost Bombs are countdown and cooldown reduced by haste, so we can get a lot more Frost Bombs out. Now, as this is a Frost Mage, I went with Frost Bomb. According to the maths, for the math guys out there, Living Bomb is pretty good still. It's going to be the #1 choice for all PvE mages, although Nether Tempest is coming in quite close. As more and more targets are involved, Frost Bomb gets gradually worse, so be aware of that. Also note that Frost Bomb has a cast time. Very, very annoying. 1.2 second cast time. Living Bomb is instant, and so is Nether Tempest. I'll just show you Frost Bomb very quickly. A little bit of a cast time. Oh, let's not miss. Let's click this target. So oh, it's got a cooldown now. I'll show you in a second. Let's talk about our level 90 talents that we're going to be getting. Again, causing huge issues amongst the math guys. Invocation. Reduce the cooldown of evocation by 10 seconds, but you passively regenerate 50% less mana. Completing an evocation causes you to deal 25% increased spell damage for 40 seconds. This is the one that is really sort of tempting towards the arcane guys who are thinking in this old school arcane style of our neutral mana phase where we're trying to keep as much mana as possible, all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to have to wait and see how Invocation works out. Obviously 25% increased spell damage is all good. All good. Rune of Power. Places a Rune of Power on the ground which lasts for 1 minute. While standing in your own Rune of Power, your mana regeneration is increased by 100% and your spell damage is increased by 10%. Only 2 Runes of Power can be placed at one time. Replaces Evocation, so we no longer have Evocation. Now we can have 2 runes down at one time, but from the description we have to be within the rune to make best use of it. So it's going to come down to, is this a heavy movement fight? Have we got 2 places we can stand pretty regularly? Is this going to be an overall DPS increase over Invocation? We just don't know yet. Until the maths work out level 90, we really don't know. Incanter's Ward places a magical ward on you, absorbing some damage for 8 seconds. Absorbed damage will restore up to 18% of your maximum mana. When this effect ends, you gain up to 30% increased spell power for 15 seconds based on the absorption used. Passively, it increases your spell power by a flat 8% and increases your mana regeneration by 65%. This effect is deactivated while Incanter's Ward is on cooldown. Again, very interesting spells, and I'm not going to pretend to throw out some good answers for you as to which one you will probably be choosing. I will say overall, pretty shit. It all sounds good on the face of it. We've got 25% increased spell damage, 30% increased spell damage, all this 10% increased spell damage, all this stuff that sounds cool. But again, these are really, really situational. And we're going to be looking to pretty much respec every single boss. Maybe that is going to be the case, guys. It is possible that mages are going to have to play around with their level 90 talents. I want my level 90 talents to blow me out the fucking water blizzard. I want them to be absolutely sick, awesome imber. These aren't. They you know, Rune of Power is like, yeah, it's cool if I can stand in a place for a while, but there's been rarely a boss fight in, what, 2 years where we can do that? So Rune of Power already seems a bit lackluster. Invocation sounds okay, I guess. And Incanter's Ward sounds okay, I guess, if we're taking some incoming damage. But let's say we mistime it and it all goes fucked up. Yeah, all a bit underwhelming. All requires some extra use and extra thinking, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we're a mage. We want to nuke the shit out of stuff, right? That's what we're all about. So, this stuff seems a bit underwhelming. One thing you will notice is that all the level 90 talents are based on mana regen. Now, I will point out that while I was doing some test DPS, mana was a little bit of an issue. Mana did become a little bit of an issue at some point. There's Frostbomb. I just want you to show you Frostbomb very, very quickly. It's pretty cool. And there's all sorts of other gravy stuff we're going to talk about. But you can see I've got all these procs going on. I've got wards and stuff. So let's jump into the spells and see what we're going to be playing with. We've still got Arcane Brilliance, of course. Increase our spell power by 10%. And increases our spell crit by 5% for the whole raid and the whole party. Very, very cool. Arcane Explosion is still there. I can't imagine we're going to use it. We've still got Blizzard. Blizzard's still doing its thing. And of course, with our talents and Frost, it also gives us extra bonuses. Very cool as well. Blink still remains. Cone of Cold. Conjure Mana Gem still there. Conjure Refreshment. Deep Freeze. Stuns a target 5 seconds. Only usable on frozen target. So we get that stun is still there. Evocate. We still have Fire Blast and Flame Strike, although we're not going to be using them today. Now, this is one of the things I wanted to talk about is armors. Armors have been switched around very much so. They're no longer instant cast. We still have Frost Armor, Mage Armor, and our Molten Armor. But they give us different bonuses. Okay, so let's read them. Frost Armor gives us a passive 5% spell haste. Okay, Mage Armor grants us Mastery. And our Molten Armor gives us an extra 5% critical strike chance, okay? They all have little passive defensive effects, which is cool and all that good stuff, but essentially you're going to be picking which is the highest stat for your class. So for the Frost one, I've gone with Frost Armor, giving me a nice 5% spell haste. If I wanted to boost up my Mastery, I could do by switching to Mage Armor, but again, these are casted spells. See, Frost Armor. Ooh, there we go, Frost Armor. All very cool. We now have Frozen Orb as well. Similar to our Flame Orb, we've now got our Frozen Orb. It looks very, very cool. It does cost a little bit of mana, I believe. 10,000 mana. It's 1/10 of our full mana. and it doesn't hit very, very hard. You can see there's some 500s and 1k crits coming off there. All the big numbers you're seeing are actually from my water elemental. So we got 10,000 mana there for our Frozen Orb, and it's very, very expensive and doesn't do a great deal of damage. Launches a Frozen Orb forward from the Mage's position, releasing frost bolts that deal 554 frost damage. What? To all nearby enemy targets for 10 seconds. Grants the Mage 1 charge of Fingers of Frost when it reaches a target. So we get a guaranteed Fingers of Frost for our easy Ice Lands. Boom! Headshot, all that good stuff. Just be aware it's very, very costly. Really costly. I would say too costly, really. I hope that gets changed. Ice Block still does what it does. We've got Ice Ward, we spoke about that. The other one I wanted to show you, Portals, Presence Management, Curse, Spell Steal, blah, blah, blah. Temporal Shield, we've talked about. Time What? Brain Freeze. Not Brain Freeze, which is the one I wanted to talk about. I think I've actually just skipped over it. Let me go back. It's the Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze stuns the target. Now, Deep Freeze on Cataclysm, if the target wasn't stunnable, it used to do an immense amount of damage. In fact, it was one of the reasons that Frost Mages were brought to fights like the Throne of the Four Winds, the Council of the Winds, because we had to bring down that huge shield on one of the members of the council very, very quickly, immediately quickly, and we could time Brain Freeze with Fingers of Frost to get instant huge damage. Deep Freeze no longer does that, so we're not really going to be using Deep Freeze in PvE anymore. I will point out that using our Water Elemental still grants us a Fingers of Frost charge, but only 1. It no longer grants 2 like it does on Cataclysm, okay? Oh, DC, nice. So the server crashed and we're back in the game, no big deal. As I was saying, Brain Freeze, or Deep Freeze, no longer does huge crit damage on our primary target if he can't be stunned. So no longer are we going to be doing that big abuse on bosses where our Deep Freeze was a major, major DPS moment. It just won't do it. It won't do anything at all. So no big deal there. We're not worried about it too much. The other thing I wanted to talk about is glyphs. Glyphs for the Frost Mage are actually pretty cool. In fact, for the Mage overall, they're pretty cool. Glyph of Arcane Explosion that we're not really going to be using, so we can ignore that. Glyph of Armors, reduce the cast time of your Frost Armor, Mage Armor, and Molten Armor spells by 1.5 seconds, and increases their defensive effect of each armor by an additional 10%. So we've got a nice boost to our defensive cooldowns as well as making them faster. We've got Glyph of Blink, increasing the distance. This one's cool. Glyph of Cone of Cold, increase the damage done by Cone of Cold by 200%. So with a 5-man heroic, where we're generally going to be doing our Frost Nova Cone of Cold to get some AoE done, always nice to have a 200% bonus on that. I really like that one. We've got Counterspell. Your Counterspell can now be cast while casting or channeling other spells, but its cooldown is increased by 4 seconds. PvPers, I guess you'll have an idea for that one. Glyph of Deep Freeze, no longer on the global. We have... I'll just look at the Frost-specific ones for this video. Frost Nova reduces the cooldown of Frost Nova by 5 seconds. Frostfire Bolt, we're not going to be casting that flat out. There is some math to say maybe it's worthwhile, but it's a long-ass cooldown, and so far I'm not seeing too much of a damage difference between that. That's hitting for 18k, and this one's hitting for 16k, but much, much faster, much more regular. I now want to show you Ice Lance. This is a great one. I took this again for 5-mans. Your Ice Lance now hits 1 additional target for 50% damage. So we've got a passive Ice Lance cleave. I love that, especially for 5-mans where we're going to be hitting a lot of trash packs. Really like that one. Glyph of Icy Veins, reduce the cooldown and duration of Icy Veins by 50%. Again, coming back to this Spine of Deathwing heroic type situation, where we've got a very short period of time for our cooldowns to get back up, and we only need them for a very short amount of time. Glyph of Icy Veins is going to be a real nice little addition to that. Glyph of Mana Gem, your Conjure Mana Gem spell now creates a brilliant Mana Gem, which has 10 charges. I don't know if it's like me, but I literally forget to do this all the damn time, is to refresh my Mana Gems. I would say the Mage is probably one of my worst classes overall for my playstyle. I still enjoy it nonetheless, but overall I think I could do a lot of work on the Mage, and maybe I'll hope to do that in the future. Your Polymorph removes damage over time spells, you guys will be well aware of that. And Water Frost Elemental, now the health of the Water Elemental is increased by 40% and allows it to cast while moving. Now that could be a nice DPS increase if I wasn't so lazy with the Mana Gem, especially with 5-mans where we're running around a hell of a lot. I will say the minor glyphs are pretty shit overall. We've got Glyph of Arcane Language, so if you know people in your raid sometimes start speaking random languages for their race. I haven't seen that done since like Sunwell, but if they do, you can understand it. Massive amounts of care. Glyph of Country Familiar. Now, this wasn't actually working. I'll try it again. It should... oh, it's still remaining because I tried to summon it for you before in a previous incarnation of this video. I'll try and summon it again. It's got a 30-second cooldown. But it summons a familiar containing either an arcane, fiery, or ice familiar. It didn't actually work when I tried it before. Glyph of Crittermorph. When you cast on critters, your polymorph spell now lasts 1 day and can be cast on multiple targets. So fine, so we'll be looking for sheeps and monkeys all over the place from critters, from random mages who have spent a lot of time doing that. Glyph of Lose Mana. Your mana gem now restores mana over 6 seconds rather than instantly. Biggest waste of time ever. Mirror Image. Your mirror images cast Fireball or Frostball or whatever you happen to be spec'd at the time. This is the most important glyph as far as I'm concerned, is Glyph of Momentum. Your blink now works in the direction you're going instead of directly in front of you. So if we're moving, strafing like this, we can blink sideways. I love this glyph. This is fantastic. It only saves us literally a turn of the mouse, but a turn of the mouse can be a pisser for mages who want to keep DPSing. So we're Ice Lancing or we're doing whatever, we want to glyph away. We can now just blink sideways, and I've also done this while Blink's on cooldown. We can blink sideways and still maintain focus on our target. I love that one. We've got various different polymorphs, monkey, penguins, and porcupines. Rapid teleportation, this is quite cool as well. When we teleport ourselves somewhere, we get a 70% increased movement speed for 1 minute. So if we literally need to teleport to grab some Dust of Disappearance, or we need to get repairs real quick, anything like that, a nice little increase. We need to check the auction house, or we need to grab some post, whatever it might be. Very cool. And this is my favourite. Glyph of Ritual of Refreshment. Your Ritual of Refreshment spell no longer requires other people, but it has a 1 minute cooldown. How effing good is that? As a raiding warlock who drops health stones and summoning stones, my god, the amount of times I will stand there with 24 people stood next to me who will not assist. Oh, it drives you insane. Lovely, lovely glyph. Thank you, Blizzard. So, after all that stuff, I'm hoping the Frost Mage rocks and rolls in PvEs now. I hope it's a lot of fun. We obviously haven't got a damage meter. I'm not enabling mods for these trials, as you're not really supposed to. But in general, we're going to see how this plays out, and hopefully it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's jump into a 5-man and see how it plays.